Next Factor is a digital marketing agency based out of New York, and we also have offices in Philly and Las Vegas. And we really try to offer like a full suite of services from digital marketing, PR, influencer marketing, the whole suite. So today we just wanted to talk a little bit about obviously the current crisis that's going on, how it's affecting small businesses, what your small business can do to adapt, and also your plans for reopening since states are slowly starting to reopen. Little introduction for myself, I guess. My name's Caroline. I'm the COO at Next Factor. I've been here for about 2 years, and I manage all the digital marketing accounts, and pass it over to Haley.
And I am Haley. I'm the senior PR director here, and basically just do a bunch of stuff with influencer marketing and press for all of our clients here at Next Factor.
All right. So we can just get started talking a little bit about, what's currently going on. We did ask people to send in questions throughout the past couple weeks. So we are pulling some questions people sent in through Instagram, through email and all of that. So Haley, if you want to start with any questions that you received.
Yeah, definitely. So really, I think a lot of the questions to start off with were a lot about reopening, a lot of small business owners, people that wanted to know what procedures they should be implementing with a reopen. So our first question that we have for you to answer is, what reopening measures are we kind of using with our restaurant, and what are we suggesting to our clients when they start to do their reopen?
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, Next Factor is actually partially owned by Chubby Cattle International, which is a hot pot restaurant with 4 locations across the country, and then opening a 5th one in the Venetian Hotel. So obviously we've also been impacted by this pandemic. We were forced to temporarily close down some of those restaurants and start offering delivery. So for restaurants that are not yet offering delivery, that's definitely the biggest thing. Do whatever you can to offer Uber Eats, Postmates, really use those third-party delivery apps. And then of course, if you have the staff to do so, set up internal delivery as well. In terms of our reopening plan, our Las Vegas location has partially reopened. And so right now we can operate at 50% capacity, and we're taking extra measures to make sure our customers feel safe. So, a lot of our customers, or all of our customers, when they come in the door, have to get their temperature taken. And then they're provided with gloves and masks to use if they have to get up and move around the restaurant, like to go to the bathroom or anything. And then, of course, our own staff, their temperature is taken every day. They're asked not to come to work if they have any symptoms. And they're also just always wearing masks to, help slow the spread. So I definitely think that any restaurants or small businesses looking to reopen should definitely try and copy those measures that we've seen the essential businesses taking part in, like within the past few months, and just doing anything you can to make sure your customers feel safe coming in.
So out of everything you just mentioned, is there like one particular thing that you would, 100% recommend out of everything? What's like the one thing you should be doing?
Yeah, I definitely think just taking those safety measures. Especially, like, you absolutely have to follow the CDC guidelines and whatever guidelines your state sets, just because, you could face federal repercussions if you don't do that. So I would definitely, would say that's the most important.
Okay. So we also have a question as well. What are some points that businesses should be keeping in mind during a reopen? Besides those reopening measures?
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep in mind that everybody's mindset has changed through this pandemic. People are a lot more hesitant to go out, to be in social settings or crowded settings. And people are just very nervous, and it's just very unsettling. So I think that's important to keep in mind when connecting with your customers and making sure that they do feel safe, that you put their mind at ease through whatever measures you can, like this that I already discussed. And I think it's also important to keep in mind that all of the businesses around you are currently in the same situation. So they'll be doing everything they can to also be getting customers back in the door. So competition is going to be very high. And as much as we need to support one another for this time, of course, it's also important to be doing things to make yourself and your company stand out.
So our next question here, we had someone who submitted a question. What can be done that isn't necessarily mandatory by law and being done by everyone else?
Yeah, I think that, like I mentioned with the chubby cattle thing, with taking customers' temperatures and providing them masks, that's not something that's being mandated. And I've gone out to several restaurants here in Vegas that aren't necessarily doing that. So I think taking those extra measures, not everybody else is doing it. It's also not mandated, but it does give that extra sense of safety to customers when they're coming in.
Nice. So how is reopening going to vary from state to state?
Yeah, so every state has its own reopening guidelines and obviously is reopening at different times. So it's just really important that your business is keeping an eye on what dates they're reopening, what their guidelines are, making sure you follow that. Like I said before, Vegas is allowing restaurants to reopen at 50% capacity. That might not necessarily be the case somewhere else. So it's just really important that depending what state you're in, you're checking in with your state and following their guidelines and their timeline.
And what is the difference, just for anyone that doesn't know, between a partial reopen and restricted business completely?
Yeah, so most of the country right now is actually in the partial reopening phase. So that means that some small businesses are allowed to reopen, not necessarily all of them. And then the stay-at-home orders have been lifted. So that's kind of the situation Nevada's in right now, where some businesses are allowed to reopen, like restaurants, nail salons, hair salons, but then others aren't. So like the casinos are still closed, hotels are still closed. And then there's different phases to that. And then the complete shutdown is kind of what almost everybody has been living in the past, month or two, where there are strict stay-at-home orders, and then all of the businesses, except for the essential businesses, are completely shut down.
Can you give us some insight on what professionals are saying, especially medical professionals, as far as reopening guidelines?
Yeah, so like I kind of mentioned earlier about, the steps that the essential businesses have been taking place in, or like the steps they've been following. A lot of healthcare workers definitely recommend strictly following those essential business guidelines that they've been following throughout the entire pandemic. And so even though it might not be mandated by the state, following those guidelines can really help your business stay safe. It's obviously been working for those essential businesses since they've been able to stay open during the pandemic and being able to serve people. So yeah, they are recommending following those guidelines.
Okay. And then if a business is located in a state that can't reopen right now, if they're going to have to wait for a little while longer, especially, I know New York, a lot of New York businesses are going to be in that position. What can they do in the meantime?
I would definitely, my biggest recommendation, of course, is delivery. And, for some restaurants, that can be really difficult just because of the type of food you're serving. For example, with chubby cattle, when you think of hot pot, like the idea of having that delivered seems quite difficult. So we had to figure out a way where we actually provide the customers with a portable hot pot to cook it in, a different way to package all the ingredients, so that was safe. And I would definitely say that, this is an option for any restaurant. It definitely takes being creative. But yeah, I think that is the number one thing. And I would also definitely recommend, don't see that as a temporary solution for this. Like that's something that you can continue doing after you reopen, just to have that additional revenue come in and offer additional options to your customers.
Definitely. And then as far as businesses that aren't quite in the restaurant industry, do you have any further recommendations for them?
Yeah, I would recommend, of course, a big one that everybody's been talking about is gift cards or gift certificates. It can help keep your cash flow running during this tough time, and then people can use it once they feel safe in doing so. I would also just, on the business standpoint, recommend reaching out to any of your third-party vendors, maybe your landlord, whoever it might be, and discussing, some sort of payment plan where maybe you can pause payments or figure out like an installation payment after you reopen.
All right. Well, that sounds good. And then my last question for you, Just kind of like a sum up about, you know, what the perfect pre-plan looks like for somebody who's trying to get started.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's important to say that no matter what your state is currently doing in terms of reopening, whether they're starting that process or it's still a complete shutdown, it's not too late or too early to start planning now. You're going to have a million other things to worry about once you reopen. And so just having that marketing plan and the reopening plan ready, so you can just follow that to a T, that's one less thing to worry about. I would definitely say that, you know, again, keeping those safety measures in mind, whatever you can do to keep your customers feeling safe and comfortable. And then, of course, using social media to connect with your customers and let them know what you're doing so they know what, like, that they're safe if they come into your business or restaurant, and just really communicating with them. And then, of course, because the competition is high, offering, you know, attractive promotions to just that final push to get customers in the door, is definitely a big one.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You did such a good job answering all of those tough questions.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, so we had a lot of questions in regards to how you can use social media, influencer marketing, press to reopen. So just to start very general, what tips would you give a small business looking to include press and influencers in their reopening marketing?
So I think digital marketing is such an important thing. It really can save your business, especially nowadays with so many people being on social media. But as far as, you know, the specifics go, I think the most important thing is having a good story to tell. Storytelling is such a big deal in press and PR in general. So just making sure that you have a story that people want to hear, something interesting and something that you can give out to different outlets. And then comes outreach as well. So kind of spreading that out, reaching out to everybody that you can, you know, whether that's through a connection that you have personally or, you know, a friend of a friend might know somebody, or even using an agency. That's an awesome way to get in touch with people. But just making sure you're really not just putting your eggs in one basket, reaching out to as many people as possible. That's the most important thing. And somebody's bound to pick it up as long as you have something interesting to say.
Yeah, definitely. And how has social media changed since COVID-19?
So it's actually changed a lot. It's basically skyrocketed since all of this stay-at-home order has started, which makes sense because people have more time on their hands. So for a lot of different, you know, outlets, a lot of different apps, we're seeing a spike in usage, and that includes Instagram, Facebook, you know, Instagram Lives as well. TikTok is really blowing up right now, which a lot of people are using. So there's been a big change. I think we can see that for sure.
I think it's important to note too that a lot of people haven't been advertising on Facebook as much. So even though the usage has gone up, their ad spend has actually gone down. So I think that is just, you know, perfect, less competition, and then more people see your ads. So
exactly, and there's more people on there anyways. So it, you know, it makes sense because that's such a good app for you know, connection to people, and I think a lot of people use it for that reason. So especially now, it's a good time to take advantage of that.
Yeah. And then what would you say are the best platforms right now to use for social media marketing?
So we just mentioned Facebook. That's a big one. And then YouTube as well is a big one. It kind of targets more of a younger demographic, but it's a great one to use. Instagram has been a really steady option as far as Instagram marketing, influencer marketing. We use that a lot here at Next Factor. And then TikTok is a little iffy because the algorithm is not quite figured out yet, like we've talked about, but it's still something that's worth looking into. And, you know, it could be actually used to your advantage because you never really know what's going to blow up. And I guess it just takes a little tinkering with something to see what works and what doesn't. And I think it also gives brands more of an opportunity to get more creative, use humor. It's a lot more lax with their marketing and a lot younger demographic as well. So it's a good way to experiment for sure.
Yeah, I feel like with TikTok, we could do a whole other talk about that on how to kind of play with the algorithm because it's so random. that, like you said, businesses can really use that to their advantage, and it's very easy. It seems very easy anyway to go viral on TikTok these days. So.
Yeah, it does. I haven't
Yeah.
yet, but it seems
Me neither.
still waiting.
It's not that easy. um, so on the topic of trends across social media, what have you seen other businesses doing to boost their marketing during this time?
That's a good question. So, you know, we're seeing a lot of different businesses use a lot of different trends. I think it really is important to know that everything has changed. It's really, really important to know that you have to know your audience. You have to know that things are going to change. So right now, you know, Facebook is way up, like we've talked about, up 27%. Netflix is way up. That's something that I don't think comes as a big surprise to anybody. A lot of people are staying home, watching videos. YouTube's up. And then we also have video apps like House Party, which has seen such an increase. I believe it's almost 80% increased since COVID-19 started. So a lot of brands are now using that as an outlet to market. And, you know, getting in, a lot of them, I'm sure, you know, started a lot earlier before that big spike. But still, it's, you know, taking advantage of a new app, and it's paying off for them, for those that have.
Yeah, that's great. And then, so what can we take away from the other brands that, you know, we've seen, you know, changing their marketing strategy, where they're advertising? What can we take away from that?
Yeah, so there's a really lot of good examples to pull from bigger brands and smaller brands. You know, just to name a couple examples, I know Facebook is doing a lot of really great marketing changes right now with their line of commercials through TV and through social media. They're really playing on person-to-person connection and empathy. And one of their bigger ads that really stuck out to me, they took a bunch of clips that other people had taken, you know, banging pots and pans at 7 p.m. for healthcare workers, which was awesome. That kind of blew up. And they've done a lot of apps like that where they're taking content from other people, which I think is really interesting because it almost puts it back in the hands of the consumer and brings it closer to home. And a lot of people are connecting to that. So that's really something that I think we can take, you know, advice from. And then also other businesses are taking another route. There's Einstein Brothers are doing a give back program. So it's like a buy one, give one as far as their bagel company. So if you buy like a dozen bagels, they'll give a dozen bagels to those in need. And that's kind of just a way to help you give back to the community, which is really awesome. And Star Restaurants as well, they're doing something really great with their gift card program. So what they did, they're actually not doing it anymore, unfortunately, but for a short period of time, what they were doing was if you bought a gift card from them, they were doubling whatever amount you bought, doubling that amount. So I actually ended up, me and my boyfriend actually ended up getting a gift card from them and got a nice, you know, ended up getting a nice $200 gift card when we only spent $100, and it was awesome. And yeah, it's great. And we were, you know, you can use that towards delivery, or you can use that after the quarantine is lifted and you can go out and enjoy it when you're finally able to go back into restaurants. So I think that's something great as well. And then as far as smaller businesses go, you know, because those are obviously much bigger businesses. They have such a larger budget to be able to do these things. Not everyone has that budget. So for smaller businesses, a couple that we've seen that are really great, there's one called Club Vino. It's a wine club. So what they're doing is they're basically shipping people bottles of wine that they pay for, and then they're doing an online wine tasting. So you can kind of have that fun experience from the comfort of your own home, which is great. And then we also, there's another one, a Manhattan-based hair salon, James Corbett Studio, I believe. And what they're doing is they are doing online videos teaching people how to cut and color their own hair, walking them through the process. You can, you know, call someone if you need help doing that. And a lot of smaller businesses I know are doing that right now. There's another one online. My mom decided she was going to dye her roots and dye her hair and bought something online, just like, you know, a little tube of color. And you could actually get on the phone with someone and they really walked you through step by step, everything you had to do, any questions you had. And it was like foolproof. It turned out great. So I know that a lot of, you know, because no one can really go out and get their hair done right now. And a lot of people, especially guys, it's like out to here.
Yeah.
So it's a good opportunity to kind of like learn a new skill. And then also there's a bakery in Seattle that is kind of doing something similar as far as learning a new skill. They're teaching people how to bake their own bakery treats. So, you know, maybe someone who likes bakery treats from this specific bakery or just wants to learn how to bake, same thing, just kind of like online classes, things you can do at home with simple ingredients you can go out to the grocery store and buy and bring back.
I think it's important, like any small business can come up with something like this and it is easy to market. I know a lot of people think that with influencer marketing, you know, you have to invite them out, have them dine in, but really these are things you could send to the influencers at home, have them, you know, post about it on their story or maybe vlog about it.
Yeah.
And especially with the Einstein brothers example that you gave, I thought that, you know, that is something that small businesses could be doing too, especially like, you know, a lot of our clients are like bubble tea shops. I know our client Meat Fresh gives a lot to the local hospital. They'll take bubble tea every couple days over. And
That's
so I
so
think
nice.
so I think
I didn't know that.
great thing that you can not only, I mean, of course you're pushing sales because you're encouraging people to help, but also you're just helping the essential workers, the frontline workers that, you know, they really need all the support they can get. Everybody does during this time. So offering a program like that is really just a win-win.
Yeah.
And while it might seem like, oh, only a big company can do that, I definitely think that small businesses can take suit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then I think also real quick, I think the takeaway from all of these examples is just to adapt your business and not kind of stick yourself in one lane and think that you can't do anything else. I think that's like the biggest thing that we can take away from all of these examples is that you can make a change and it would, you know, it has the possibility to make or break your business right now. So I think now's the time to take those chances if you can.
Definitely. I think that's actually probably one of the mistakes that most small businesses made when this all started was thinking that, you know, it's only going to last a couple weeks, so we can just, you know, kind of push through it, stay closed. And now I think they're really realizing like, okay, you either need to adapt or you're not going to be able to reopen.
Yeah.
But yeah, adapting right now is definitely the biggest thing businesses need to do.
For sure.
So yeah, I guess just to wrap things up, those were all the questions people submitted. Can you just go over like a quick overall review for everything we talked about for anyone who might have joined later?
Yeah, definitely. So really just to kind of overview, I think it's really important to look at all your options, know going into it that you do have options, know if reopening is available to you soon. And if it's not, you know, make sure you have a absolutely solid plan ready for when you are able to reopen and start doing those, you know, things that we talked about in the meantime, if you can't reopen right away. And then obviously adapting your marketing strategy is such a big deal. Like we just talked about, you know, based on our current climate, just getting creative with everything, making those changes that are necessary, and then using every tool that you have available to you to kind of get your business off the ground, get you back in the game. Use all of those, you know, platforms, make sure you're putting marketing out and really just pushing it out to press, to influencers, doing everything you possibly can, because it really is going to be a competition and it's important to, you know, make sure that you're coming out on top.
Yeah, I agree. All right, well, this was great. We definitely covered a lot. So thank you to anybody who did send in questions, whether it's through Instagram, email. Maybe we can do another one of these again in the future once things, you know, reopen more. We can talk about, you know, anything.
How things are going.
Yeah.
In the first, you know, couple months after a reopen, maybe readdress some things. Yeah, exactly. That needs to be our next one. How to market on TikTok.
Yes, definitely. All right. Well, thank you so much. This was great. I hope that this was helpful for anybody listening. And for anyone who is listening, if you have any questions, anything that we didn't cover, please feel free to reach out to us. You can find our email on our Instagram page, and then yeah, just reach out that way.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Caroline. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Yeah, bye.
Bye, guys.